My name's Tavis Leaf Glover, and today we're going to be breaking down 10 great photos and 10 not so great ones, just to show you exactly what classical design does for a photographer's eye and the final image. Lighting and styling matter, but if your design sucks, it's game over. And I know that sounds harsh, but it's true. I've seen beautiful models, perfect lighting, and the most expensive wardrobe fall completely flat just because the image lacked solid design. In fashion photography, you can't just rely on mood and styling to create a remarkable image. Without classical design principles like balance, rhythm, negative space, and figure-ground relationship, the eye has nowhere to land, and the image feels empty, confusing, and lacking visual clarity, no matter how elaborate the shoot appears to be.
Just look at it! Yeah, well... What the heck is that?
This isn't about nitpicking. It's about giving you the tools that fine artists have used for centuries, so you can blend modern style with timeless composition. By the end, you'll see why some images instantly pull you in and why others make you scroll past without a second thought. Let's start with the not so great ones because that's where we can see how the basics of composition can improve the visual clarity. And when I say not so great, I'm not trying to bring down the photographer or say they aren't skilled. Sometimes flaws slip through the cracks, that's fine, but the more we train our eyes, the better we're able to spot them. First up, a black and white photo by Peter Lindbergh. Anyone with a decent eye can tell something's a little bit off. It's just an okay image. The problem here is the visual clarity. So if you squint your eyes, the main subjects there, the two models dressed in high fashion, they start to blend into the background a little bit too much. The figure-to-ground relationship, or how the subject fits into the background, is super critical. I would argue that it's the most important design principle you should learn and always apply. Without it, most compositions end up just mediocre. And when your image is chaotic like this, where the contrast isn't controlled, your best move isn't to overcomplicate it even more. You need to simplify it. Strip away all the distractions and increase the visual clarity by controlling that contrast. There's no better place to start than with the figure-to-ground relationship. If you get that right, you give your viewer something solid to hold on to. You can blur the background slightly or just crop away most of the image if that's needed. The best approach though is to learn these composition and design principles before you click the shutter. You can't rely on post-processing to save photographic disasters like this. Next, we have a quirky avant-garde photo by Juergen Teller, a model casually sitting in a bubble bath holding a ridiculously expensive handbag in what looks like a random parking lot. So original. This type of quirkiness is almost becoming cliche in fashion photos, but the problem is it creates a lot of distractions. The main subject is the woman and the handbag, but everything else is just an unrelated distraction. Images like this aren't doomed to fail, but they do need a trained eye just to clean them up a little bit and keep the visual clarity going. If this is a serious ad for the handbag, it's drawing way too much attention everywhere else except for the product. And it's surprising how many professional photographers lose control over the contrast and allow distractions to slip into the background. Most stick with seamless backdrops for a reason. They help with the figure-to-ground relationship and visual clarity. But mistakes are bound to happen, like this photo by Mario Testino. The backdrop's contrast grabs more attention than the model with the branch on her head. So we need to clean it up. And to do this, we just subdue the busy background and we get more visual clarity. In this Stephen Meisel photo, the model's light skin and head wrap blend into the light fabric of the bedding. Light on light or dark on dark, that just means minimal contrast. And contrast is what drives visual clarity, so when it's missing, the image is easily forgotten. Adjusting contrast helps, but that's no way to go about a professional image. Get it right in camera. Maybe he could have used dark sheets. That would definitely provide enough contrast against the light values, and this way you don't need to rely on Photoshop magic. Ellen von Unwerth's photo has some chaos as well because she didn't focus on the figure-to-ground relationship.
Shame! Shame!
Yes, this is another pro photographer fumbling the basics of composition. It happens. Can you see how the long railing lines up perfectly with the model's leg? This creates an unwanted illusion that should have been avoided. It's similar to those photos you've seen where a tree is just growing right out of someone's head. And we see it in this Merton Marcus photo. This is a great image. I love the mirror, I love the water droplets, everything about it, but an illusion slipped through and it's making her head look just like a pineapple. Ellen's photo is clearly the bigger mistake. Any professional is going to just take a look at the back of their LCD, see if the image is looking okay, and they can tell right away if the contrast is being controlled. If you run an imaginary line around your subject, this is a great way to check for the figure-to-ground relationship. And we can see in this image that there's quite a few areas that are fighting for the viewer's attention, and a lot of them are colliding with the model themselves. So it definitely needs some cleaning up, or just to pay a little bit more attention on location and get the shot you need. It's okay to check the back of your LCD to see if the image is okay. Take your time, plan things out, learn composition techniques, and you'll have a better chance at creating something remarkable. Now, if you've seen any photos by David LaChapelle, you'll know he loves chaotic, busy images, but the composition should always come first. In this one, noise pulls attention away from the main subject. The highlights and the whites are also lost where there should be a subtle texture there. There's also an imbalance, and we can clearly see this. If you draw a vertical center line, you'll see that she's placed on the left, while there's not a strong point of interest on the right side to help balance things out. This building just looks like the rest of the stuff behind her, not significant at all. And when you consider her gazing direction, which can influence the balance, we see that she's looking left, which adds even more weight to this left side. So we've got a left-heavy composition. What we can do is crop off the right side and fix the blown-out highlights to refocus on the subject while keeping the background's context. So all this stuff is just overwhelming the image. Now, if it was for a magazine spread or something like that, and they put text over it and subdued the background just a little bit more, then that would make sense. But for right now, as an image by itself, it makes no sense to have all this background on the right side here. So we just cut it off and simplify the image, and we get something more powerful. Lindsay Adler is a talented photographer, especially when it comes to light, and she's one of my favorites. But this next image, it shows imbalance with all the visual weight on the right side. We need to think of the vertical center line as the fulcrum of the image, kind of like a teeter-totter. And we need to balance the contrast on both sides. So when we move the model slightly left of that vertical center line to offset the lens flare at the top right, we get a more balanced image. This Richard Avedon photo might seem flawless, but some errors do stand out. Let's start with these horrendous chains on the elephants. It can leave a bad taste for anybody who cares about animals. It's kind of hinting at beauty from confinement. Plus, look at this elephant on the right side. Its eye is completely cropped into. And that's a bad look. We wouldn't crop a person's face like this. Plus, something that you might have missed, take a look at the figure-to-ground relationship on the model. We've got an unwanted illusion here. Her body curves match the elephant's leg in the background, and that makes her waist look way wider than it actually is. And this is a tough one to fix, but it all boils down to controlling that contrast. So we gotta lop one of the elephant's legs off, or at least just reshape it. So that's what I did here. And then we just cropped into the image on the right just to remove that awkward eyeball on the edge. Now if you want to edit out the chains to take it a step further, you can do that too. This next one by Mario Sorrenti is, a pretty decent image at first glance, but he should have considered how color can help the visual clarity. Right now, all the values are blending together, and we can see that he took time to pick out a wardrobe, he scattered some leaves in the water, he made sure the model had nice makeup, all these things take into account, but then he just washes it out by converting it to black and white. So what I did is colorized it in Photoshop to bring more visual clarity back to these individual shapes. And it's a pretty decent image, and you can argue that it's even better than it used to be. But the point is just to plan things out before the shutter even clicks. Now let's move on to 10 great images, starting with Elizaveta Porodina. She uses 4 colors, red, yellow, blue, and green, in a clear hierarchy, just like Vincent van Gogh in his paintings. Her figure-to-ground relationship ensures visual clarity, and she adds depth with the lens flare and the motion blur. Remember how we talked about balance with Lindsay Adler and David LaChapelle? Balance starts at the image's center, which is why the rule of thirds can mislead artists, from beginner to pro. It focuses on thirds without considering figure-to-ground relationship or proper balance. And what you may notice is many pros use center compositions. Interesting, right? So here we have Herb Ritz creating this striking photo with a center composition. It has massive visual impact with those dominant diagonals. It's got perfect figure-to-ground relationship, and he's also including graphical elements like this ellipse. And see these old school shoulder pads? Those add to the curving arabesque of her pose. Nick Knight's center composition is full of movement and depth. Sweeping lines in the costume and the particles in the air, they all mimic the depth you see in nature's aerial perspective. To drive home balance, look at Erwin Olaf's photo. He knows exactly what he's doing. He's considering that vertical center line, and he's balancing the woman in yellow on the left with this man on the right. That's called a counterpart. Now he's taking it a step further to create visual tension. So if we divide this right side in half, we can see that the man is placed on the right side of it, pushing him even further to the right side, and his gazing direction is going right. All of this creates visual tension, and we can feel this in the image. And it's reminiscent of the TV show Mr. Robot, where almost every shot creates this visual tension with the actor's face really close to the edge of the frame. Paolo Roversi's photo has perfect balance. It's got great figure-to-ground relationship and spot-on lighting contrast. You can spot flaws or strengths by simplifying the image in Photoshop with this threshold adjustment layer, sliding it back and forth just to check the contrast. He's also got 4 models standing very close to each other, but he's ensuring that the most important parts, their pretty faces, are clearly separated. This is what we call separating shapes, and when combined with nice figure-to-ground relationship, we get excellent visual clarity, even when the shapes are silhouetted. And cinematographers use this technique all the time so each character can be seen by the camera. When we talk about classical design, it also includes dynamic symmetry, which actually promotes techniques like 90-degree angles for strength, dominant diagonals for visual impact, repeating diagonals for rhythm, and linear movements or coincidences for movement and unity. It's also used to help organize compositions, whether it's simple or complex. Tim Walker uses a 4/3 basic grid to align the model and branch-like props in this next photo. Pair this with his strong figure-to-ground relationship created with the bold white makeup and black background, and his nesting concept is taken to new heights. Irving Penn uses a 5/4 grid in this complex composition to organize a group of models with unique poses. Aligning them and their poses to these simple diagonals of the dynamic symmetry grid creates unity and movement. The more techniques you use, the stronger the composition becomes. Even loosely using the grid like Solveig Sundsbo does here, it works perfectly fine. If you can't align the model's pose perfectly to the grid, you can always parallel it. You can even have the model pose in an elliptical shape like this. But you always want to try and combine it with nice figure-to-ground relationship. I can't stress that enough. The visual clarity is absolutely paramount. In this photo by Craig McDean, he has the model spread her limbs to create an aspect of view, which, much like ancient Egyptian art, gives us the most identifiable shape to boost visual clarity and create interesting designs. Annie Leibovitz pulls it all together in this masterpiece. She's got strong figure-to-ground relationship, an aspect of view in the pose, repeating diagonals in the dress, the arm, the waterfall, and the background rocks. She's got an arabesque in the waterfall and dress for movement, and a hidden triangular enclosure in the center. The beauty of this image is undeniable, and it only works with a great knowledge of classical design. That's it for this one, everyone. I hope that inspires you to learn more about composition. And if you're curious about other techniques, be sure to check out the links in the description below. You can even join the newsletter to get tons of freebies and downloads. Be sure to like, subscribe, all that good stuff, and we can stay in touch for next time.